Welcome to our mini project presentation, Physical Activity Program for Classroom and Off-Task Behavior by Leslie and Sissy. So our research educational problem that we were thinking of relates to this. Imagine being 5 years old and having to sit in a desk for a half an hour or more, listening to the teacher and quietly working. Believe it or not, that happens with our 5-year-olds. Studies show that this can lead to a lack of focus in the students and even disruptions within the classroom. A few studies have looked into the effectiveness of using frequent movement breaks within the class, but very few have focused on the Go Noodle app specifically. Furthermore, we're focusing on kindergarten students who are especially in need of frequent activity and movement, and they do not always get it. This is an investigation regarding the effectiveness of using Go Noodle, an exercise application for children, in reducing off-task behavior in a general education kindergarten classroom. So, what is the purpose of our research? Our purpose is to determine if implementing the Go Noodle app in kindergarten classrooms will result in decreased off-task behaviors. We define those off-task behaviors as not orienting to the task at hand, playing with given materials instead of using them to engage in the activity, and not following the directions that were given. I know we've all seen that in all of our kids, not just gardeners. So here's our question. To what degree can the use of Go Noodle, a computer-based exercise application, decrease off-task behavior in a kindergarten classroom setting? So how are we making sure this research design is valid? Well, this study is an example of a single subject baseline multiple probe ABA design. It's designed to exhibit the validity of the intervention. So we're going to say A is baseline, B is the intervention. A is baseline, B is the intervention. And so we're hoping to see that the baseline returns to the baseline levels and that each time we introduce the intervention, we see intervention type levels. Participants. We're using 2 general education kindergarten classes that will participate in the study. So there's going to be 15 students in each class for a total of 30 students. 18 of the students are girls, 12 are boys. The participants are 5 to 6 years old, and 6 of these students, 3 girls and 3 boys, were selected specifically as target participants because their teacher reported off-task behavior and they showed a lack of interest in physical activity. Those 6 students were all in the same class, and those are going to be used as our intervention class. So, how did we select the participants? In a little survey, teachers selected students based on a questionnaire of 3 questions. Number 1, how often do you play outside? Number 2, how long do you like to play outside? Number 3, do you play any sports? Students were rated on a scale of 1 to 5, 1 being the lowest. In addition, teachers also observed students and chose students who were oftentimes showing frequent off-task behaviors. So the setting of the study, 2 general education kindergarten classrooms where students were going to wear a pedometer to track their movement throughout the day. Students were required to attend homeroom where they were assigned a pedometer each day to track movement. So that's just another layer of this study, tracking overall movement for both classes. The setting for this study, one class was used as the control, and the other class was used as our intervention classroom. So the variables, we know the independent variable hopefully influences a change on the dependent variable. Our independent variable in this study is the intervention Go Noodle. It's a classroom-based physical activity application. It allows students to dance along with vigorous movements with instructions provided. The students in the intervention classroom are going to participate in the Go Noodle activity for 10 minutes a day. The dependent variable, what are we hoping will change? Off-task behavior. The experimenters are going to compare the off-task behavior during baseline and then look at it again during the Go Noodle phase. How are you going to implement this? Well, we've got our two general ed kindergarten classrooms chosen. One classroom will be business as usual or the control group. The other class will be the intervention classroom in which the Go Noodle intervention will be used. Each student's going to be given a pedometer in order to measure daily steps, and the observation is conducted in order to measure the number of off-task occurrences, as I previously stated, not orienting to the task, playing with given materials instead of using them to engage, and not following the directions. Observations will be conducted each day in the intervention classroom and in the control classroom from 9:10 until 10:10 in the morning. Baseline data will be collected. In the intervention class, students will engage in the Go Noodle activity from 9:30 to 9:40. Observers are in there continually observing before the Go Noodle activity as well as after the Go Noodle activity. In the control classroom, students will continue to engage in the normal routine, and the observers will be in there for the entire hour. The daily number of steps will be measured and recorded for all students in both classrooms, and baseline will be collected for 1 full week. Then Go Noodle will be implemented to the intervention class only during week 2. Data is going to be collected on both classes for off-task behavior during that same time frame, from 9:10 to 10:10. Week 3, we're going to return to the baseline. Data will continue to be collected for off-task behaviors from 9:10 to 10:10. Week 4, the intervention class will participate in the Go Noodle activity again, and we'll continue to observe both classes from 9:10 to 10:10. Results will be recorded and displayed visually for analysis. Validity and reliability. Teachers will select students based on their recurring off-task behaviors as per teacher observation. Also, a part of the selection was that questionnaire where they answered those questions about physical activity. 2 observers will be trained to assess off-task behavior and on-task behavior. We really are focusing on the off-task behavior for our data collection. Observers will be trained to use partial recording sampling to track targeted behaviors. Using a 10-second interval, each observer will record their observations separately to ensure validity and reliability of the study, and an inter-observer agreement of at least 90% needs to be attained for data to be considered valid. Our data analysis plan. The data is going to be displayed for visual analysis for each classroom. So we're looking at the occurrence of off-task behaviors. We're going to graph those for each session during each phase. So 5 days a week, 5 sessions per phase. For the control classroom, it'll be a baseline occurrence, really, of off-task behavior. For the intervention classroom, we're looking at that ABAB design. A separate graph is going to display the total number of steps per classroom per day. That's going to help with our validity to show that hopefully the kids in the intervention class are getting more steps per day. The rationale for this study. Exercise can generally be a significant factor in the growth, development, and the health of children and adolescents. The effects of physical activity regimens on global growth, as well as quantitative and qualitative changes that have been demonstrated. The significance of physical activity in controlling body weight and maintaining a healthy balance of growing children is at the utmost importance. Because children and adolescents spend a lot of their time at school, the school environment presents a really good opportunity for the youth to be physically active. But over the years, schools have faced budgetary cuts, increasing pressure on teachers to improve their academic achievement scores, and many opportunities for physical activity are being reduced or eliminated. And childhood obesity is a huge concern nationally. Some studies have shown that regularly scheduled activity breaks might help to reduce disruptive behavior. However, few studies have focused on how the app Go Noodle specifically may reduce off-task behavior in kindergarten students. After doing this presentation, my partner Leslie and I have both determined that it is so much to designing a valid and a reliable study that's also socially appropriate and significant. We know you must be able to thoroughly review the existing studies that are related to the topic of interest, and that can be very time consuming, but it's important so that the researcher can conduct a socially significant study. Furthermore, a lot of thought has to be put into how are you going to select your participants? How are you going to make sure that the experiment relates to that specific population that's related to your question? Choosing the appropriate design, considering the setting and the participants that you want to include, the question that you're asking is really important. All of the implementation procedures have to be carried out with great care, with great fidelity, to ensure that the conditions are constant other than the intervention. When you're collecting data, it's got to be reliable. You got to have that inter-observer agreement. And once your data is collected, you really need to analyze it in a scientifically based, empirically based way to determine what are the increases, decreases, what are the trends, what are the rates. So it's been a really good project. I feel like Leslie does too. We both have a much better understanding of what it takes to all that goes into empirical studies. Thank you.